They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Well, mine turned into the day I discovered who my real family was and who deserved to stay in my life forever. Hey, beautiful souls. Before I tell you this story that changed everything for me, I need you to do me a favor. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit that like button right now. And if you want to hear more real stories about finding strength in your darkest moments, make sure you subscribe because, honey, we're about to take a journey together that you won't forget. Now, let me tell you about the night that shattered my world and how I turned that pain into the most powerful moment of my entire life. My name is Layla, and 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I was 28, successful in my marketing career, and engaged to Andre. This fine man who made me laugh until my stomach hurt and treated me like I was the only woman in the world. We'd been together for 3 years. And when he got down on one knee in front of my whole family at our annual barbecue, I swear I thought my heart was going to burst with happiness. But the person I was most excited to share this journey with was my sister Nia. She's 2 years younger than me, and we'd been thick as thieves our whole lives. When other kids teased me for being the nerdy one with braces, Nia would be right there ready to fight. When she struggled in school, I'd stay up all night helping her with homework. We shared clothes, secrets, dreams, everything. She was supposed to be my maid of honor, and I was already planning how she'd be my baby's favorite auntie. Andre loved our whole family. But he and Nia had this easy friendship that made my heart so full. They'd joke around at family dinners and he'd help her with her car troubles or give her advice about the men she was dating. I used to watch them laugh together and think, God, I'm so blessed that the love of my life fits so perfectly with my family. The wedding planning was everything I'd dreamed of since I was a little girl. Mama Johnson, that's what everyone called my mother, was in full mother of the bride mode, calling me 3 times a day with ideas about flowers and seating arrangements. We'd booked this beautiful venue with these huge windows that let in all this golden light, and I'd found the perfect dress that made me feel like a queen. Everything was falling into place like it was meant to be. The week before the wedding, the whole family came into town. Cousins from Atlanta, aunts from Detroit, even my grandmother from Mississippi made the trip. Our house was full of laughter, music, and the smell of Mama's cooking. Andre was staying with his boys at a hotel downtown, keeping with tradition that we shouldn't see each other the day before the wedding. But Nia was right there with me, helping with last-minute details and keeping me calm when I started stressing about the weather forecast. The night before the wedding, we had this beautiful rehearsal dinner at Mama's favorite restaurant. Andre looked so handsome in his navy suit. And when he gave his toast about how excited he was to officially join our crazy family, I felt like I was floating. Everyone was laughing and crying happy tears. And when it was over, Andre kissed me goodnight and whispered, "Tomorrow I get to marry my best friend." After dinner, most of the family went back to their hotels, but Nia came home with me and Mama. We sat up in my childhood bedroom, painting our nails and talking about everything and nothing. Around midnight, Mama went to bed, but Nia and I kept talking. She seemed different that night, kind of quiet and fidgety, but I figured she was just emotional about her big sister getting married. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I realized I'd left my phone charger in the car and my phone was about to die. I needed it for my alarm and to coordinate with the hair and makeup team in the morning. I told Nia I'd be right back and headed outside to grab it from my car in the driveway. That's when my whole world collapsed in the span of 30 seconds. I was walking back to the house, phone charger in hand, when I heard voices coming from the side yard near Mama's garden. It was late and I couldn't figure out who would be outside talking at this hour. I walked closer, thinking maybe some of the cousins were out there catching up. And that's when I heard it. Andre's laugh. That deep, warm laugh that I loved so much. But why was he here? He was supposed to be at the hotel with his groomsmen. I crept closer to the garden, and what I saw made my knees almost give out. There was Andre, my Andre, sitting on Mama's garden bench with his arm around someone. And that someone was Nia, my sister, my maid of honor, my best friend. They weren't just talking. They were kissing, soft, intimate kisses like they'd done this 1,000 times before. His hand was in her hair and she was whispering something in his ear that made him smile. That smile that I thought was just for me. I stood there frozen watching them, and I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare. But then I heard Andre say, "I wish things were different. I wish I could just call off tomorrow and run away with you." And Nia, my baby sister who I would have died for, said, "We've talked about this after the wedding, after the honeymoon, we'll figure it out. Ila will never have to know." I must have made some kind of sound because suddenly they both turned toward where I was standing. In the moonlight, I could see their faces go white with shock. Andre jumped up and started walking toward me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Ila, baby, let me explain." But I held up my hand to stop him. I looked at Nia, who was just sitting there with tears streaming down her face, and I felt something inside me break and then immediately harden into steel. "Don't," I said, my voice coming out calmer than I felt. "Just don't." I turned around and walked back to the house, leaving them both standing there. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. Nia came in about 10 minutes later trying to explain, crying, begging me to forgive her, but I couldn't even look at her. I told her to get out, and she finally did. I sat there all night, not sleeping, not crying, just thinking. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. When my alarm went off at 6, I got up and started getting ready like it was any other day. Mama came knocking on my door, all excited and chatty about the big day, and I smiled and played along. Nia tried to talk to me when she came down for breakfast, but I just told her we'd discuss everything later and that she better be ready to fulfill her duties as maid of honor. The hair and makeup team arrived at 8, and our house turned into this whirlwind of activity. Cousins were running around taking pictures. Mama was crying happy tears every 5 minutes, and Aunt Rose kept making sure everyone had eaten enough breakfast. Through it all, I stayed calm and focused. I knew what I had to do. At the venue, everything looked perfect. The flowers were gorgeous, the lighting was dreamy, and all our guests were arriving looking beautiful and happy. Andre's family was there, my work friends, everyone who mattered to us. I could see Andre at the front of the church in his tuxedo looking nervous and handsome. When it was time to get dressed, I put on my wedding dress and let Mama fuss over me while the photographer captured every moment. I looked at myself in the mirror and I looked like a bride, a beautiful glowing bride who was about to marry the love of her life. But I knew something nobody else in that room knew. The music started and the processional began. I watched from the bridal suite as the groomsmen walked down the aisle, then the bridesmaids. Finally, it was Nia's turn. She looked beautiful in her dusty rose dress, and I could see her hands shaking as she walked to the front of the church. Then it was my turn. Mama squeezed my hand before she walked down the aisle to take her seat. "I'm so proud of you, baby girl," she whispered. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." The bridal march began and I took my daddy's arm. He'd been gone for 5 years. But my uncle stepped in to walk me down the aisle. As we started walking, I could see every face in that church turned toward me. All these people who loved me and were here to celebrate what they thought was going to be the happiest day of my life. I walked slowly, smiling at familiar faces, nodding at Andre's grandmother, who was crying happy tears in the front row. And finally, I looked at Andre. He was staring at me like I was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. And for just a second, my resolve almost cracked because I had loved this man. I had planned a whole life with him. But then I looked at Nia standing there in her maid of honor dress and I remembered what I'd seen in Mama's garden. I reached the altar and Pastor Williams began the ceremony. He talked about love and commitment, about the sacred bond of marriage, about how we were joining 2 families together. The congregation was quiet and attentive, hanging on every word. Then came the part where Pastor Williams asks if anyone has any reason why the couple shouldn't be wed. This is usually the part where everyone stays quiet and the ceremony continues. But I had been waiting for this moment. I turned to face the congregation. My voice clear and strong. "Actually, I do." You could have heard a pin drop in that church. Pastor Williams looked confused. Andre's face went pale and I could see Nia's eyes widen in panic. I have a reason why this marriage shouldn't happen. I continued, my voice carrying to every corner of that sacred space. Because last night I caught my maid of honor and my fiancé in my mother's garden, planning their affair for after my honeymoon. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers started like a wave moving through the congregation. I could see Mama's face in the front row, confused and heartbroken. Andre's mother had her hand over her mouth in shock. I looked at Andre, who was standing there with his mouth open, and then at Nia, who had gone completely white. I loved you both more than anything in this world, I said, and now my voice was shaking, but still strong. I trusted you with my whole heart. But I'm not going to stand here in front of God and all these people who love me and promise to spend my life with someone who is planning to betray me before we even set our vows. I took off the engagement ring that I'd worn for 8 months and set it on the altar. I deserve better than this, and I'm worth more than settling for someone who doesn't know how to be faithful. What happened next was chaos, but also something beautiful. As I walked down the aisle away from that altar, people started standing up, not to leave, but to support me. My cousin Tiffany started clapping. Then Aunt Rose joined in. Then more and more people until half the church was on their feet applauding. I made it to the back of the church where my uncle was waiting with tears in his eyes. "That's my girl," he said, pulling me into a hug. That took more strength than anything I've ever seen. Outside the church, some of the guests came to check on me. Andre's own sister pulled me aside and told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself. "He never deserved you," she said. "And what they did was unforgivable." Mama found me about an hour later, still in my wedding dress, sitting in the bridal suite. She didn't say anything at first, just held me while I finally let myself cry. When I was done, she looked at me and said, "Baby, you just showed everyone in that church what real strength looks like. I raised you right." Andre tried to call me later that night, but I didn't answer. He sent texts trying to explain, trying to make excuses, but I blocked his number. Some betrayals don't deserve explanations or second chances. Nia showed up at my apartment the next week, crying and begging for forgiveness. She said it had only been going on for 2 months, that she never meant for it to happen, that she was going to end it after the wedding. But I looked at her and realized that the sister I thought I knew, the person I trusted more than anyone, had been planning to let me marry a man she was sleeping with. That's not love. That's not family. I told her I needed time. And honestly, I still don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her completely. Some wounds cut too deep. But here's what I learned from all of this. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the best thing for your future. Because I didn't just dodge a bullet that day. I dodged a lifetime of being with someone who didn't value me enough to be faithful. 6 months later, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I took that honeymoon trip to Italy by myself and had the most amazing 2 weeks of my life. I started therapy and learned so much about setting boundaries and recognizing my worth. I even started dating again. And let me tell you, when you know what you deserve, you don't settle for anything less. The wedding dress, I donated it to a program that provides dresses for brides who can't afford them. Someone deserving got to have their perfect day in it, and that makes me happy. Now, if this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to find strength in your darkest moment, I want you to hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Share your own story if you feel comfortable. We're all healing together here. And if you want to hear more stories about finding your power, overcoming betrayal, and learning to put yourself first, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because honey, we're just getting started on this journey of choosing ourselves first. Remember, you are worthy of loyalty. You are worthy of honesty. You are worthy of a love that doesn't make you question your worth. And sometimes walking away from what looks perfect is the bravest thing you can do. I'll see you in the next story. And until then, keep choosing yourself. You deserve nothing less than